They say curiosity is dangerous, that it's better not to open certain doors. No one ever warns you about the danger of standing there, hand on the knob, knowing better, and stepping inside anyway. I've gone over that day so many times in my mind that it doesn't even feel like a memory anymore. It feels like a story I tell myself, frame by frame, trying to understand the woman I was and the woman I almost became. It started with a knock, a friendly face, a small favor. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, no storm outside, no thunder, no ominous music, just a quiet afternoon, a too big house, and a heart that had been ignored for so long. It mistook simple attention for something sacred. I remember the stillness of the house that day. My husband was out of town, again. Another conference, another business trip, another series of late-night emails that mattered more than what was happening inside our walls. My stepson was away for the weekend with his classmates, probably laughing in crowded hallways and noisy rooms, forgetting this place even existed for a little while. It was just me, just the hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the kitchen clock, the faint sound of cars in the distance that never seemed to get closer. I was sitting at the table with a mug of coffee gone cold, staring through the kitchen window at the quiet street, not really seeing anything, just existing in that soft gray space between boredom and sadness. My phone lit up on the table. A message, "Hey, Miss Lane, are you home? I've got something of Noah's to drop off." It was from Lucas, my stepson's best friend. You know, the type of boy parents feel instantly comfortable around, respectful, neat, the kind who actually says thank you without being reminded. That was Lucas for the last couple of years. He'd been in and out of the house so often he almost felt like part of the furniture, someone I was used to seeing half asleep on the couch, shoes kicked off, laughing at something on his phone with. Noah. He always greeted me properly. "Hi, Ms. Lane." Never hey. He'd offer to help carry groceries in from the car. He'd rinse his plate without being asked. Tiny, thoughtful things that don't seem like much until you realize how long it's been since anyone did them for you. I didn't hesitate. "Yeah, I'm home," I typed back. "Come by." It felt harmless. Normal. A boy returning something my stepson left at his place. No reason to feel anything at all about it. But I did. He arrived 10 minutes later, knocking gently before I even had a chance to expect the sound. When I opened the door, he was standing there in a faded hoodie and jeans, a reusable grocery bag hanging from one hand, the other shoved into his pocket. "Hey," he said, eyes warm. "I found some of Noah's stuff. Thought I'd bring it over before I forgot." He stepped inside, handing me the bag. Inside was the usual teenage clutter, a sweatshirt, a game controller, a couple of notebooks. But there was something else too, wrapped in foil, still faintly warm. "What's this?" I asked. He scratched the back of his neck, suddenly shy. "A cinnamon loaf thing. I tried a new recipe this morning. My mom said it turned out okay. I thought, maybe you'd want some?" I smiled, more touched than I should have been. "You bake now?" He gave a small laugh. "Trying to. I figure if college doesn't work out, I'll open a tiny bakery and pretend it was my dream all along." There was something so disarming about how he said it, half joking, half serious. I told him he was welcome to stay for a slice and some tea, but he shook his head, glancing at the door, as if reminding himself to be polite. "I don't want to bother you. I just wanted to drop that off. Maybe next time I make something, you can tell me if it's not terrible." I don't know why that made my chest tighten. It was such a small offer, a completely innocent suggestion. "Sure," I said, shrugging like it was nothing. "I'd like that." He smiled, and for a brief second, there was a softness in his eyes that felt like the beginnings of a confession. It vanished quickly, replaced by the familiar polite gratitude I was used to seeing. "Okay, I'll let you know," he said. And within moments he was back outside, heading down the path. I closed the door, carried the still warm loaf to the kitchen, and set it down. The house felt different somehow, like someone had cracked a window in a room that had been locked for years. Not better, not yet, just stirred. I sliced into the bread and took a bite. It was good, really good. Moist, sweet, the cinnamon lingering on my tongue. I smiled to myself, alone in a kitchen, where my husband's place at the table had become more decoration than reality. That was the first moment I should have recognized it. Not the bread, not the knock, the feeling. That tiny spark of warmth inside me that had nothing to do with sugar or cinnamon and everything to do with being thought of. But I didn't see it then. It's always easier to notice the beginning of a storm when you're looking back from the middle of it. I'm in my early 40s. At strange age where you're neither young enough to be asked about your dreams nor old enough to be asked about your regrets. People assume you've settled into your life like a piece of furniture that's found its corner and will never move again. I've been married for 8 years. If you had asked me back then, I would have said I married a good man. Responsible, steady, kind of man who never forgets to pay a bill, who worries more about mortgage rates than birthday surprises. His name is Eric. He works hard. Too hard if I'm honest. Long days, longer nights, constant travel. He built a life for us, a comfortable one. A nice house, reliable cars, a fridge that's always full. On paper, there's nothing to complain about, but papers don't show you the slow erosion of conversation. They don't capture the nights spent lying side by side, both awake, both scrolling through separate worlds in the harsh light of separate screens. They don't document the moment "how was your day" becomes a habit instead of a question. It didn't happen overnight, the distance between us. It crept in quietly. At first, it was just a late meeting, then late meetings became business dinners, then business dinners became overnight trips. Somewhere along the way, our lives stopped overlapping and started running parallel, close but never touching. Noah is Eric's son from his previous marriage, 17, sharp-witted, funny when he forgets to be guarded. He's got that constant teenage exhaustion, the kind that has more to do with the world than with sleep. We're not close like a mother and son, but we're not distant either. I'm the person who reminds him to grab a jacket and sneaks a second helping onto his plate when he says he isn't hungry, and his eyes tell a different story. He loves his father. He also feels the absence, even if he pretends not to. I see it in the way he shrugs when I say, "Your dad will be home late again." I see it in the way he lingers in the kitchen sometimes, spinning an empty glass in his hand, like he wants to say something but doesn't know which language would make it land. Then there's Lucas, 19, tall, but still with that slight awkwardness of someone who hasn't fully grown into his own limbs yet. Hands always busy, tapping a rhythm on his leg, spinning a pen between his fingers, drumming on the edge of the counter when he thought no one was looking. He's been around long enough that I recognize the sound of his laugh before I recognize my own reflection. At first, he was just Noah's friend. Then he became the one who always helps bring in the groceries, the one who asks how your day was and actually listens, the one who notices when you cut your hair, even if your own husband doesn't. It started with little moments. The way he'd stay behind when Noah went upstairs, helping me clear plates while I asked how school was going. The way his eyes would linger a little longer on my face when I answered. Not in a disrespectful way, in a way that said he actually cared about the answer. Once I was struggling with a trunk full of grocery bags in the driveway, wind whipping my hair into my face. Out of nowhere, he appeared at my side. "Let me help," he said, already reaching into the trunk. Our fingers brushed on a plastic bag handle. It was the smallest of touches, absolutely nothing to anyone else. But I remember the warmth of his hand, the way he glanced at me with concern as he said, "You shouldn't have to haul all this alone." I told him I was fine. I always say I'm fine, but the words stuck with me long after the bags were empty and the pantry shelves were full. "You shouldn't have to do this alone." That sentence echoed in my mind every time I sat at the dinner table staring at Eric's empty chair, every time I watched Noah eat quickly and vanish into his room, headphones already half on before he reached the hallway. The house used to feel lively. There were photos on the walls, smiling vacations, holiday dinners, messy birthday candles. Over time, they became more like museum pieces, evidence that joy had existed there once. I stopped adding new frames. It felt dishonest. The day Noah left for his school retreat, the silence hit differently. He was excited when he left, tossing his backpack over his shoulder, joking about finally escaping my overcooked vegetables. We both laughed. I hugged him a little longer than usual, pretending it was just because I would miss his smart remarks. When the door closed behind him, I listened to my own footsteps echoing through the hallway as I walked back to the kitchen. I wiped down counters that were already clean. I rearranged the cutlery drawer just to feel like something could still be put in order. Eventually, I gave up and sat down with another cup of coffee, watching dust float lazily in a shaft of light coming through the window. My phone vibrated again. "Are you around? Got something for Noah and maybe something for you too?" "Lucas." Heart did this strange little skip. It caught me off guard. I told myself it was just because I hadn't spoken to anyone all day. That's what loneliness does. It convinces you that any human contact is more significant than it really is. "Sure," I replied. "Come by." When I opened the door, he was there again, but this time there was no grocery bag, just a small bakery box in one hand and his phone in the other. "Hey," he said, "Noah left his earbuds at my place. I'll bring them by later, but he lifted the box slightly. "Made this. Thought you might be getting bored with your own cooking." I laughed, surprised by how easy it sounded coming out of me. Wow, subtle insult and a gift? Bold move. He grinned, that boyish, almost sheepish grin. "It's an almond cake. I've been experimenting. I was going to text Noah's mom to see if she wanted some, but she's out of town, so I thought, I don't know, maybe you'd be my test subject." The way he said it made me feel chosen. Not special exactly, just selected. "Seen. That's very brave of you," I said. "What if I hate it?" "Then I will suffer in silence while I pretend I'm not devastated," he replied. or I'll just try again next weekend until I get it right. Next weekend, I repeated, the words catching somewhere between my throat and my chest. He cleared his throat. Actually, I was wondering something. His tone shifted, careful but steady. Would you maybe want to come over and try it there? I made too much. I figured we could have some coffee. You can give me notes so I don't poison anyone at future gatherings. I should have said no, not because of what it meant in that moment, but because of what it could become. Because a woman who has been thirsty long enough will drink from any cup that's offered. Instead, I hesitated just a second too long. The pause was its own answer. Maybe, I said. I tried to sound casual. I don't think I did. He nodded, like he had expected that exact response. No rush. I'm just a couple blocks away. Door's always open. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while the glow of Eric's hotel lamp flickered across the room through a video call I ignored. He'd left a message earlier, something about the flight being delayed and the schedule being packed. I listened, replied with a string of supportive words that sounded like they'd been copied and pasted from every other week. My thoughts kept drifting back to Lucas. Not in a sexual way, at least not then. It was the way he had looked at me on the doorstep, the way his voice softened when he said, "Door's always open." I turned onto my side, watched the vacant space beside me, and thought, it's just cake, just coffee, just company for an hour in a weekend that would otherwise be nothing but chores and silence. The next afternoon, I walked to his place. I told myself I was just going for a quick visit. I didn't dress up, but I didn't dress down either. I chose jeans that fit a little better than the others and a blue sweater that made my eyes look less tired. I tied my hair back, untied it, and tied it again. By the time I left the house, I had convinced myself it was nothing. His building was small, a modest complex with a narrow sidewalk and a couple of dying plants by the entrance. I climbed the stairs, mentally rehearsing all the reasons this was perfectly acceptable. I was just being friendly, showing support, that's all. When he opened the door, that belief cracked. He'd clearly made an effort. The apartment was tidy, cushions straightened, a candle burning on the coffee table. Soft jazz played quietly in the background, the kind of music that doesn't demand anything from you. It just sits there, offering you a place to rest. "Hey," he said, the words somehow both casual and careful. "Come in." The moment I stepped inside, I noticed the smell. Warm sugar, toasted almonds, and coffee. My favorite kind of coffee, not the harsh, bitter kind my husband drank on autopilot, but something smoother, gentler, the kind you sip instead of gulp. "You remembered how I take it?" I said before I could stop myself. "Of course," he replied quietly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "You always add just a little more milk when Noah and I are there. I pay attention." Those 3 words hit harder than they should have. I pay attention. They landed in a place inside me that had been empty for a long time. We sat on the couch, a safe cushion's worth of distance between us at first. I cradled the mug between my palms, letting the warmth seep into my fingers. The almond cake was light and moist and unfairly good. I told him so. He laughed, looking more relieved than he should have over a dessert. We talked. At first it was simple surface-level things, how school was going, how stressed Noah seemed lately, how expensive groceries had become, the small talk of people who have never been alone together before and are trying to pretend it's not a big deal. But then the conversation started to drift. He asked me about the book that had been sitting on the kitchen counter the last time he was at our house. He wanted to know if I finished it and what I thought. I told him I liked it, but I related more to the parts where the main character felt stuck than to the parts where she found freedom. "So you feel stuck?" he asked, eyes steady on mine. I hesitated. "Don't we all sometimes?" He nodded, and there was something older than 19 in the way he did it. "I guess we do. It's just, you always look like you're holding your breath." That made something inside me falter. "Is that what it looks like?" I asked. "A little," he said, offering a faint smile. "Like you're trying not to take up too much space, like if you move too loud, something might break." There was no mockery in his voice, just observation, just truth, and that scared me more than anything. I found myself telling him things I hadn't said out loud in years. Not dramatic secrets, just the slow, ordinary disappointments that accumulate in a life. How Eric and I used to talk for hours when we first met. How we used to take spontaneous drives at midnight just because. How somewhere along the line, the spontaneity dried up and the conversations turned into logistics and schedules. Lucas didn't interrupt. He didn't argue or justify or tell me to be grateful. He just listened, his expression open, his eyes never once drifting to his phone. I didn't realize how rare that had become for me, being given someone's full attention. Time slid by unnoticed. The coffee cooled, the candle burned lower. At some point, the space between us on the couch shrank. Not enough to be inappropriate, just enough to cross some invisible line I hadn't meant to draw, but had always assumed would be there. Our knees brushed. It was such a small thing, but it felt massive. Neither of us moved. His voice was softer when he spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" I swallowed. "Depends what it is." "Are you happy?" he asked. It was the kind of question you want to pretend you misheard. I stared at the steam curling up from my mug, searching for an answer that didn't feel like betrayal. "I'm fine," I said finally. "I have a good life, a stable life. I'm grateful." "That's not what I asked," he said quietly. My chest tightened. "Then I don't know how to answer." He shifted slightly, turning more toward me. I could feel the warmth of him at my side. It wasn't like Eric. Eric's presence had become functional, a body occupying space, not a person reaching out. "I see you, you know," Lucas said, "more than you think." I tried to laugh it off. "You're 19. You barely see where you're going when you walk." "Maybe," he said, smiling faintly, "but I see you." There was a long stretch of silence then. Not the heavy, suffocating silence of my kitchen at night, but a charged one. A silence that felt like it was holding its breath with me. He set his mug down slowly, as if he didn't want to startle whatever fragile thing had settled between us. "You deserve more than this," he said, "more than half sentences and empty chairs. More than being the one who keeps everything going while no one notices you're exhausted." I felt my throat constrict. "Lucas," he didn't look away. "You deserve to feel wanted, not just needed, wanted, like somebody looks at you and thinks, 'How did I get this lucky?'" My heartbeat stumbled. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. It felt like I had stepped onto a ledge without realizing it, only now realizing how far the drop was. I told myself he was just being kind, just saying what any decent person would say to someone who clearly felt neglected. But there was something else there, in the way his voice softened on the word wanted, like he was tasting it, like it meant something to him too. I should have stood up. I should have thanked him, made a joke, grabbed my coat, and walked out the door. That's what the version of me who never crossed lines would have done. Instead, when his fingers brushed mine on the couch, I didn't move. He didn't grab my hand. He didn't pull. He just rested his fingertips lightly over my knuckles, as if giving me time to pull away. I didn't. That was my choice, my mistake, my confession. My skin tingled under his touch. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I turned my head to look at him, and he was already looking at me, eyes full of things he was trying hard not to say too quickly. "Please don't misunderstand this," he whispered. "I know I'm not supposed to feel this way. I know how it looks. But I can't stand watching you fade into the background in that house. You're not invisible, not to me." An entire reel of images flashed through my mind. Eric scrolling his phone at dinner, Noah closing his bedroom door, the empty side of the bed, the way my voice sometimes felt like it dissolved in the air before it reached anyone. Lucas leaned in slightly, not enough to close the distance, just enough to make every nerve in my body scream with awareness. I could feel the warmth of his breath when he spoke. "Have you ever wondered," he murmured, "what it would feel like if someone looked at you like you were the most important thing in the room?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. My silence gave me away. For a second, the world narrowed down to the small space between us. If either of us had moved just an inch, our lips would have met. I felt myself teetering on the edge of a decision that would change everything, even if nothing else changed outwardly. He exhaled shakily, eyes searching mine. "I don't want to hurt you," he said. I can't pretend I don't see you the way I do." Reality came rushing back all at once, the walls, the candle, the cooling coffee, my wedding band pressing into my skin, the image of my stepson's face if he ever found out, the sound of my husband's voice in my memory, tired and impatient. "You're always so emotional lately. I'm doing my best. Isn't that enough?" I pulled my hand back as if burned and stood up too fast. The room swayed for a second. My mug rattled on the table. "I should go," I said. My voice sounded small and distant to my own ears. He looked up at me, expression pained but controlled. He didn't reach for me again. He didn't plead. He just nodded once, as if he had always known this was the only way the afternoon could end. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. That's not—" I started, then stopped. I didn't know how to finish the sentence without revealing too much. "I just can't." "I know," he whispered. "I know you can't. I just needed you to know that someone sees you. That's all." I walked to the door on legs that didn't quite feel like mine. My hand shook slightly on the doorknob. Before I stepped outside, he spoke one more time. "I meant everything I said," he murmured. "And if you ever decide you deserve more than what you're settling for, I'll still mean it." The hallway outside felt colder than it should have. I walked home in a haze. I don't remember crossing the street or passing the neighbor's garden or climbing the steps to my front door. I just remember the feeling of air pressing heavily against my lungs, as if breathing had suddenly become something I had to relearn. That night, I didn't cry. You'd think I would. That's what happens in stories, right? The woman goes home, collapses, sobs, repents, promises herself never to be so foolish again. But I didn't feel like a character in a story. I felt like someone standing in the middle of a room where all the furniture had been rearranged just slightly. Everything looked almost the same, but nothing was quite where it used to be. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the imprint of his words replaying in my head. You deserve to feel wanted, not needed. Wanted. When sleep finally came, it brought strange dreams. Not feverish or explicit, nothing like that, just simple scenes that felt more vivid than my waking life, sitting on that couch again, hearing laughter that didn't feel forced, feeling a hand reach for mine and not pulling away. Waking up from those dreams hurt more than any nightmare. The next morning, the house looked exactly the same cereal on the counter, the same unwashed mug in the sink, the same faint scuff mark on the hallway wall where Noah had bumped into it with a backpack months ago. But I was different, because now I knew what my loneliness was capable of. Eric called that afternoon. His voice was brisk, efficient. Hey, just checking in. Everything okay there? Yeah, I said. Fine. How's the conference? Boring. You know how these things are. Paper shuffling, a muffled conversation in the background. Listen, I might have to extend the trip by a day. There's a dinner I should probably attend. You'll be all right. I wanted to say no, I'm not all right. I almost crossed a line yesterday that would have shattered everything you assume is stable. Instead, I said, of course, do what you need to do. You're the best, he replied. I don't know what I'd do without you. He meant it as gratitude. All I heard was, I don't know what I'd do without what you do for me, not without you. Noah came back a day later, sunburned and tired, dropping his bag inside the door with a thud. Hey, he muttered. Hey, I answered, forcing brightness into my tone. Trip okay? He shrugged. Yeah, it was fine. His eyes flicked to my face for half a second, then away. He seemed restless, like he wanted to ask something and didn't know how. I made dinner. He ate quietly, barely looking up from his plate. When I mentioned that Lucas had dropped by with Noah's things, something in his posture changed, so subtle I almost missed it. Oh, he said. Yeah, I answered, focusing on my fork. He also brought over some cake he'd made. He's getting good at it. Noah pushed his food around. He said he saw you, he muttered after a moment. My chest tightened. When? A while ago, he said. Did you go over there? The question was casual, but that's the thing about casual questions. They're often anything but. Yes, I said, voice steady. I went for a little while. It was just coffee and cake. That's all. He nodded, but the air felt different after that, thinner somehow. He excused himself early and went to his room. Over the next few days, there was a slight chill in the way he spoke to me, the way he passed me in the hallway without pausing. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was just teenage moodiness. But the guilt in my chest twisted every time I saw Lucas's name pop up in Noah's messages. Lucas didn't come around for a while. No knocks, no texts, no baking experiments. His absence spoke more loudly than his presence ever had. I went about my routines, laundry, groceries, half-listened to phone calls with my husband, as if nothing had happened. But inside, I carried the afternoon like a fragile glass object I couldn't put down. Almost 3 weeks later, my phone vibrated while I was folding towels on the couch. A message. From him, I just want you to know I meant everything I said. And I'm not asking you for anything. If you choose your life as it is, I respect that. But if you ever decide you want different, I'd want you. No pressure, just the truth. I read the message once, then again, then again. My heart pounded, my breath shallow. There was no demand in his words, no manipulation, just a line drawn quietly in the sand. I didn't reply. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time, typing, deleting, typing again. In the end, I locked my phone and set it face down. But I didn't delete the message. Some part of me needed it to exist, even if I never intended to act on it. Days blurred into weeks. Life resumed its familiar rhythm, or at least the version of rhythm I had accepted as normal. Eric came back from his trip, dropped his suitcase in the hallway, kissed my cheek as though he hadn't been gone long enough to notice the spaces where I had almost disappeared. How was everything? He asked. Fine, I said. That's my girl, he replied, placing a worn folder on the counter and launching into a story about a difficult client who finally signed a deal. I nodded in the right places, smiled when expected. Later that night, as he sat on the edge of the bed checking his email, I watched him. Really watched him, the familiar slope of his shoulders, the lines at the corner of his eyes, the way his focus narrowed to the screen, everything else, including me, blurring into the background. Eric, I said quietly. He didn't look up. Are you happy? I asked. He glanced over briefly, eyebrows raised. Where did that come from? I just want to know, I said. Are you happy with us, with me? His phone buzzed in his hand. He checked the notification before answering. Of course I'm happy, he said. We have a good life. Why are you asking weird questions? Because I don't feel happy, I said before I could stop myself. He frowned. Are you unhappy with me? I'm lonely, I replied. The words hung in the air, fragile and heavy at the same time. He sighed, rubbing his forehead like my feelings were a problem to be solved between scheduled calls. You know how much pressure I'm under at work. I'm doing all of this for us. Don't make it sound like I'm neglecting you on purpose.